I drove nearly 4 hours to be there for my nephew's baptism. The second I stepped onto the church grounds, Jenna was already waiting. She blocked my path with that stiff, practiced look on her face and said flatly, "Let's not make a scene. It's better if you just go." I didn't argue. Didn't even bother asking why. I just pulled the envelope from my jacket, placed it in her hand, turned, and walked back to my car. 10 minutes later, she opened it, no check inside, only a note that said, "Check the joint account." Her yelling started before I'd even pulled out of the lot. I'd made that long drive thinking I was going to be welcomed as someone important, not because I wanted a spotlight, but because I thought I deserved to be there. Without me, Jenna wouldn't have even made it through the last year. Who wired $3,000 the day the mortgage company started threatening? Who paid to get the heat and electricity turned back on after her husband's layoff? Who covered the hospital bill she swore insurance would take care of? Every single time, it was me. So yeah, I thought I'd walk into that church, sit up front near the godparents, maybe even get a smile or a thank you. Instead, the church was packed and gleaming, and Jenna was outside waiting like a bouncer, arms folded, expression stone cold. No warmth, no small talk. Just, "It's better if you leave," said like she'd practiced the line in the mirror. I hesitated for a second, almost thinking I misheard her, that maybe she'd follow it up with a joke. But she didn't. She stood there firm, like I wasn't invited. So I didn't say a word, I just handed over the envelope and walked away. Sitting in my car with the engine off, I stared through the windshield while people passed by laughing on their way inside. I wasn't even listening to them. I was thinking about how long I'd let Jenna get away with this routine, how often our parents had defended her while she drained me dry. Then came the slam of the side door. She stormed out, heels clicking across the pavement, envelope dangling from her hand like it was toxic. She was shouting into her phone, furious. I knew exactly what she saw in that envelope. No check, just the note. And by then, I'd already moved every dollar from our shared account into my own private one, new savings, new passwords, new everything. For the first time, she had no safety net. That's when Dad's old Chevy came screeching into the lot, half parked over the lines, engine still running. I laughed under my breath. Of course, she'd called him the second she realized the money was gone. Mom hopped out right after, already pointing in my direction like she was on a search team. Jenna was pacing in circles, playing the victim, waving her arms. They came toward me like some little courtroom drama. Dad in the lead, Jenna behind him, Mom trailing but already glaring. He leaned down to my cracked window, voice low but sharp, "You're really pulling this on your nephew's baptism? Today?" I didn't answer right away. Just looked at the three of them standing there. Mom with her arms crossed, Jenna fake crying, Dad waiting for me to explain myself. Finally, I said evenly, I handed her an envelope at a family event. "Isn't that normal?" Mom snapped. "Don't be a smartass, Lisa. You emptied the account. Jenna has bills. She was counting on that money for the mortgage. What were you thinking?" I kept my eyes on Jenna. She didn't say a word, just pressed her lips together. She knew exactly why this was happening, she just didn't expect I'd follow through. After letting the silence drag, I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out the folded check I'd brought along. $4,000. I held it up just long enough for them to see the number. Mom's eyes widened. "You were going to give her that?" "That was the plan," I said calmly. If she hadn't told me to leave before I even walked in. Jenna stepped forward, voice sharp. "So you drove all this way just to punish me?" "No," I told her. "I came here to celebrate your son. I brought a gift. You told me to go, so I left." She waved the envelope at me like evidence. "And this? This is your revenge?" Mom was nodding beside her, switching tones from angry to disappointed. "Lisa, this is childish. You're putting money above family." And that's when it hit me. I'd heard this script 1,000 times before. Whenever Jenna pulled her stunts, they circled around her. Whenever I said no, suddenly I was the selfish one. They never asked how much I'd already given, never asked what it cost me. Jenna crossed her arms, demanding, "At least give me access back to the account, even if there's nothing in it." Mom chimed in quickly, siding with her. "That's reasonable, Lisa. You can't just cut her off completely." I looked each of them in the eye. "I'll think about it." The second it slipped out, I regretted it. In this family, that phrase wasn't a boundary, it was bait. I might as well have tossed blood into shark-infested water. They weren't going to back off, and I had only just started pulling away. Of course, they didn't leave after I said it. That was their green light to push harder. So they huddled just a few feet from my car, whispering like high school kids who'd just been caught smoking behind the gym. I raised my window halfway, flipped the air conditioning on, and let them stew. Jenna kept shooting glances at me, expecting I'd cave like always, roll the glass down, apologize, hand her a check. But that version of me wasn't showing up today. My hands stayed locked on the steering wheel, eyes forward. Eventually, she spun on her heel, stomping back toward the church. Her heels hit the pavement sharp and loud, like she wanted an audience for her anger. Dad muttered something to Mom before following her inside. Mom lingered, just long enough to hit me with that exhausted look, the one she always used when she thought I was the family disappointment. Then she left, too. I sat there another 5 minutes before starting the engine. I didn't head home. Not yet. I just needed space, somewhere I couldn't be seen. I ended up at a strip mall a few minutes away, parked in front of a grocery store, bought a coffee I didn't want, and sat in my car watching a couple fight over a parking spot. That's when it hit me, something I hadn't thought about in months. The car. My old silver 2011 Honda Civic. I'd driven it for almost 8 years before handing it over to Jenna and her husband last year after his accident left them with only one vehicle. I can still hear myself saying it, "Don't worry about it. Just take it." At the time, I planned to sell it, but giving it to them felt like the right move. Family helps family, right? Except, it never felt like a gift. Gratitude never showed up. Overnight, it just became theirs. No questions, no transfer, no thanks. I even kept paying the insurance for a while until I realized they weren't going to bother with coverage themselves. I eventually pulled it from my policy. Still, not a word. I dug through my phone's documents. Sure enough, title was still in my name. No lien, no transfer. Legally, it was mine. That was all I needed. I called the same towing company I'd used once before when a neighbor parked in my spot for weeks. Gave them the make, model, plate number, and told them exactly where it would be, the back lot behind the church, tucked near the dumpsters where Jenna and her husband always parked to avoid the front entrance. The dispatcher said they'd send a truck in about 45 minutes. I left my info and told him to confirm once it was done. Then I just sat there, sipping coffee that had gone cold, scrolling through old texts from Jenna. Every single one was some version of, "Can you send money?" Never once, "Can I pay you back?" I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. About 40 minutes later, my phone buzzed. The tow had gone smoothly. The car was on its way to the impound lot, waiting under my name until I decided its future. Meanwhile, Jenna was probably still inside the church, smiling for pictures, oblivious that her husband's ride home was already on a flatbed. Surprise number 2 was on its way, and this time, there'd be no one else for her to point the finger at. I stayed in that strip mall lot longer than necessary. Not because I was stuck, because I liked the quiet. No angry calls, no guilt-laden voicemails. Just silence. I was about to head home when muscle memory had me open Facebook. And there it was, Jenna's post. An album already live. Photos of the baptism, her in pale blue, the baby in that oversized white lace outfit that looked more like a costume than clothing. My parents standing proudly next to her, all smiles like nothing had gone down outside. The caption read, "Grateful for the love, the faith, and the people who show up when it matters." A neat little jab at me. I almost laughed, until the album started glitching. Photos disappeared mid-refresh. The big group shot vanished. Even her caption cut off halfway, like she'd stopped typing in the middle of a sentence. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it. But something told me to answer. It was Jenna's husband. He skipped pleasantries. Where the hell is the car? I told him the truth, still legally mine. I gave it to them because they needed it, but it was never theirs. After today, it felt like the right time to take it back. His voice stayed calm at first. He asked how I could do that today, of all days. How I could leave them stranded with a baby after the baptism. But then he said something that froze me. Jenna had been telling people the joint account was hers. That I'd gifted it to her. That it was compensation for skipping the baby shower. That I set it up so she'd have something stable. My parents believed it. She'd been crafting this story for months, turning me into the absentee sister buying forgiveness with money. And just like that, all their reactions made sense. The guilt trips. The way Mom scolded me, the way Dad told me I had no right to freeze her out. Jenna had written the script and they all swallowed it. I hung up without another word. Drove straight to the bank. Sat down with a rep, showed my ID, and told them to shut the account down immediately. Cancel her card, flag it, send a closure letter. I could have done it weeks ago, but I'd wanted to believe she was careless, not deliberate. I was wrong. She knew exactly what she was doing. As the teller processed it, another thought hit me. Jenna's husband had bragged on LinkedIn about a job interview across town. Without the Civic, without that account, their world just got a lot smaller. When I left the bank, I was holding a printed statement. Proof the account was closed for good. It was like setting down a heavy load I didn't even realize I'd been carrying all these years. For a brief moment, everything felt light again, quiet, almost calm. But I knew it wouldn't stay that way. The pushback was coming. Not just guilt trips or raised voices this time, pleading, demanding. The peace didn't fade, it broke apart. My phone buzzed non-stop the next morning. 4 missed calls. 3 voicemails. All before sunrise. Mom first, then Dad, then Jenna, twice in a row. The kind of order that made it obvious they were sitting together, planning who should take the first shot. I didn't bother with the voicemails. The text spelled everything out. Lisa, we need to talk. This is serious. Don't ignore us. I have a baby. I can't get to work. Please, just until Friday. Jenna's message was the last one, a screenshot of her account in the red, minus $217, followed by a crying emoji and a photo of the baby in a diaper on the floor. Same pattern as always, pity first, pressure next. An hour later, Mom called again. I picked up this time, not because I wanted to, but because I knew if I didn't, they'd just keep hammering my phone. She skipped right past hello. Are you really doing this to your sister? That was her opener. No small talk, no soft start. Just straight to blame. She listed everything. Jenna humiliated because she had to beg a neighbor for a ride, no gas money left, crying all night, the stress dangerous with a baby in the house. Then she pivoted. I don't understand how you went from being the most giving one in this family to acting like someone we don't recognize. And then came the line she'd been saving, your father and I think maybe you should talk to someone. This isn't you. There it was. The flip. If guilt failed, they'd reframe me as unstable. Like refusing to bankroll my sister indefinitely meant I needed therapy. I kept my voice steady. I told her I was fine. I wasn't broken, I was just done being drained. Having no child didn't mean I owed endless handouts. We were seconds from ending the call when she added one more thing: if this is about the car, you've already got it back. But don't punish a mother like this. That's your nephew. It wasn't about the car, not really. It was about how easily they rewrote the story, casting me as the villain the moment I stopped feeding their expectations. Later that day, while I was working, the doorbell rang. Out front, the Honda sat across my driveway. No one in sight. Just the car, with a crumpled envelope tucked under the wiper. Inside, a single page: you want control? Fine, take it. No keys. No explanation. Just theatrics by delivery. They'd clearly gone to the impound, paid to pull it out, then dumped it back at my place like children throwing a tantrum. What they didn't realize: I still had the spare key in my drawer. I unlocked it, drove it around back, and left it there. Didn't bother with a reply. That night, Jenna called again, this time sobbing. She said her job was on the line, missing another shift would wreck everything, that the account was the only thing keeping her afloat. Just a few days, please, until Friday. Her voice cracked like she was holding the baby while dialing with the other hand. I didn't snap. I didn't explain. I just said, I'll think about it. And the second those words left my mouth, I knew I'd slipped again. Because to Jenna, I'll think about it wasn't a boundary. It was an opening. Proof her grip wasn't broken, only loosened. That night, I barely slept. Every buzz from my phone felt like another plea waiting. They weren't finished. They were just warming up. By morning, I finally typed out the message I'd been circling for years. No edits. No hesitation. Just one line. I've thought about it. The answer is no. I sent it, flipped my phone face down, and walked outside. I didn't need to read their reaction, I could predict it: shock first, then anger, then the recycled guilt they always threw at me like a rope, certain I'd grab on. But I didn't. What struck me wasn't the fight that followed, but the silence. For once, no immediate explosion, no flood of texts. Just stillness. I almost believed maybe they'd accepted it. They hadn't. That night, Dad called. I almost ignored it but picked up out of curiosity. His voice was calm, too calm, like rehearsed. Why don't you come over for dinner? Let's talk this out. Everyone's here. Jenna's ready to apologize. That word, apologize, hit wrong. It wasn't part of her vocabulary, at least not in any honest way. I asked if this was really about the account. He insisted it was about family, about not letting something like this divide us. I told him I'd think about it. He said okay. But I knew I wasn't going. The next morning, Mom texted. It started with, I know you're hurting. Another attempt to turn my boundaries into symptoms. She said motherhood was hard, people say things they don't mean, that Jenna was overwhelmed, but at the core, we were still sisters. And then, of course, came the ask. Jenna's husband had landed a job offer across town, and they just needed the Honda for a while. It would mean the world, and you wouldn't even need to worry about maintenance this time. We'll handle everything. She closed with, you've always felt good helping people. Let yourself feel that again. I kept staring at that sentence. That was the heart of it, the thing they'd been banking on all along. That I'd keep playing the part they'd written for me. The dependable one. The one who gave without being asked. Who always covered the bill, always excused, always came back. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I grabbed the spare key from my drawer, drove the Honda a couple towns away, and sold it. No dramatic goodbye, no big scene, just paperwork signed, a fair offer, and a moment that felt more freeing than any therapy session I'd ever been pushed toward. The guy at the dealership asked why I was letting it go. I just said, it's time. That was enough. Back home, I logged into the bank and closed out the joint account for good. No pending charges, no linked cards erased. Then I blocked their numbers, one after another. Mom. Dad. Jenna. Each one felt heavy, like flipping a switch I couldn't reverse. But it wasn't payback. It wasn't me being dramatic. It was respect, finally for myself, after 20 years of giving it away to everyone else. They'd crossed a boundary they didn't think existed. And now they were on the far side of it. Since then, nothing. No knocks at the door, no surprise letters, no visits. I don't know what story they're telling about me. Probably that I lost it, that I abandoned them, that I turned my back on family. But I sleep better now. My chest doesn't tighten when my phone buzzes. I don't compulsively check my balance every morning. I don't drag around that constant exhaustion of being everyone's backup plan. Jenna still has her life. And for the first time in years, I finally have mine. 2 months passed with silence so deep it almost felt like peace. I didn't believe they'd changed, but I did think maybe they'd shifted their attention to someone else. Jenna always needed a crisis. Maybe I was no longer useful for hers. Slowly, I started feeling like me again, not the version they molded for convenience, but the one I'd been carefully building in the quiet. I was sleeping through the night, focusing better at work. I even started dating again, something I hadn't had space for in a long time. Then out of nowhere, a letter showed up in the mail. Handwritten. My name scratched across the front in Jenna's handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. I stood in the kitchen staring at it, debating whether to even open it. Inside, the first line hit, "I guess you think I'm the villain in all this." Not an apology. Not ownership. Just that. Like we were talking about a film and not years of manipulation. She wrote about how hard things had been. About how she leaned on me because I always came through. About how somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing me as a person and more as a lifeline. She said the lies around the account got out of hand, that she hadn't meant for them to stretch on so long, and when I finally uncovered it, she didn't know how to back out without losing face. Near the end, she wrote, "I'm not asking for money. I just want to know if we'll ever talk again." I read it twice that night. Once more a few days later. It wasn't dripping with manipulation like before. But it still wasn't an apology. Not really. No sentence began with "I was wrong." Just page after page about how hard her life felt without me holding it up. I never wrote her back. Instead, I scribbled down a note of my own. Just a few lines I keep tucked in a drawer. I pull it out when I start second-guessing myself. It says, "It's not that I hate you. It's that I finally love myself enough to stop letting you drain me." And that's the part they'll never get. Loving yourself isn't betrayal. It isn't abandonment. It's just overdue. For years, I was the dependable one. The fixer. The safety net. The ATM. And the more I gave, the less visible I became, not just to them, but to myself. They never saw me. They only saw what I provided. And when I stopped providing, they acted like I vanished. Like I'd stolen something from them, when all I did was take back what was mine to begin with. Sometimes I think about the car, not because I miss it, but because of what it symbolized. I used to feel guilty about reclaiming it, selling it, making them walk. But the truth is, I'd been walking alone for years. They just finally noticed. I don't know if Jenna ever told the truth about the account. Maybe she still spins the story that I abandoned her in some crisis. Maybe she tells people I'm unstable, bitter, jealous. Maybe she believes it herself. But I stopped trying to fix that narrative. Because the ones who want to believe that version of me? They're not the ones I need close. I used to think family was permanent, something you endure, something you owe. Now I know it's a choice. And I choose not to stand at the back of the line waiting for compassion. I choose not to be their fixer anymore. Not because I stopped caring, but because I finally started healing. And healing isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. It's quiet. It's steady. It's waking up without dread. Afternoons without obligation. Nights without rehearsing excuses for the next phone call. It's deleting a draft you don't need to send. It's walking past a photo without bracing yourself. It's remembering hurt without reopening the wound. It's blocking numbers and leaving them blocked. It's standing in your own kitchen, breathing your own peace, knowing you're not waiting for the next crisis dressed up as a favor. It's realizing silence isn't punishment. It's protection. Do I sometimes wonder if they'll try again? Yes. Maybe with a softer tone, a new angle, another plea. But I know this, I'm not where they left me. I've moved on. Not out of spite. Not out of anger. But out of truth. The truth that love doesn't mean enabling. That boundaries aren't cruelty, they're clarity. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself. And I did. I chose Lisa. And for the first time in a very, very long time, I don't feel guilty about it.